Welcome, everybody. It's day 2 of the 24 days of the Advent calendar. I'm sure you recognize the face beside us, Linda G. And she's come over to help with the second day. And we're going to go over and look and see what's in her. What stone showed up for Linda?
I hope it has candy in it.
No, mine doesn't have candy. Mine has stones. I'm not that much fun. So
When I see little boxes of like that, it makes me think of
oh, I
candy.
know. What? Yeah, and and the thing is, I have to open them before I run the show because they're very hard to open.
Okay.
And so yours was a little bit open, and even still, you can see I struggle to get the stone out. But today is not a stone; it's a fossil. It's this little bitty fossil right here, and it is called it's called an orth Orthoceras, and it's an nautilopod, which means it's a shell. It's like a little corkscrew shell.
Wow.
And they're primarily found in a stretch from Sweden to Morocco and even into the Antarctic. The archaeologists find them in fields, like just stacks and stacks, thousands of them all put together, all stuck together in the same digging site. It's an extinct creature. There is not a shelled creature that looks quite like this one. And it was in the Ordovian period, which I'm sure we're all very familiar with, and the Triassic period, and it's 500 to 200 million years old.
Jesus. But it was that size that looks like that?
Yeah. Yeah, this is if you it's kind of been scraped down to its basics. And beyond their scientific significance, fossils and that are left for us are revered for their metaphysical properties. In the realm of crystal healing and spirituality, these fossils are believed to carry ancient wisdom and to possess various healing and protective qualities. So that's you, Linda.
Wow. That is cool.
Oh,
Can you spell it for me so I can look it up on the internet?
spell it, the
Yeah,
basic shell. Orthoceras.
that's cool.
And yeah, it is. I looked some stuff up on it in Google, and I was mostly it's. I'm going to come back to me now from your stone, your crystal, your fossil. The
And
way
Nancy, real quick, if something happens and you lose me because it's pouring again,
yeah, I know.
and I lose my power, just sit and wait because I have a
Back up.
a Generac.
Yeah.
And it'll take 2 to 3 minutes to come back up and I can catch it. I'll just come right back in.
Okay. And as you know, we're doing this in honor of the Earth Mother, and we're doing it from the prayers of the Hodonosaurus, right? Honosaurus. And you want me to spell you that one, Linda? That's a long one.
That's all.
And that's a group of tribes that were in the northeastern US, up into Canada, across to the Great Lakes, and over to the Atlantic Ocean. And the Iroquois, you probably have heard more about the Iroquois
Yes.
Confederation, but they were just a part of this. But when they would meet, they would have prayers of thanksgiving. And this is one of the prayers that has been written down that they did. For our Mother Earth, we are all thankful to our Mother, the Earth, as she has given us all that we need in life. She supports our feet as we walk upon her. It gives us joy as she continues to care for us as she has been from the beginning of time. To our Mother, we send our greetings and thanks. And now our minds are one. And now, right now, as these crystals build, the first crystal we had was howlite or dolomite, or some people call it white turquoise. There is not a really white turquoise, but it's set in jewelry like a lot of turquoises. And that one's for enlightenment and awakening of our intuition. And now this is going back and tying back into our intuition from before. And ancestor stones are like amber and petrified wood. They're stones that were left on the earth to remind us that things have lived before, and the earth supports you even when you're not swimming around the ocean being little boop boop boop. So I it's good to remember that in a time of change that you can change, but it may be for the better.
Yeah,
And it's time to understand that growth and change is not always easy. I'm sure as there have been several generations of complete die off of the earth, and that period they're talking about, Triassic, was one of them. That's when the earth got so cold. The only place you could live was in the ocean, and even they got starved for oxygen because the plants weren't doing their thing.
right. You know, it's raining so hard, it's even hard to hear you. Can you hear the rain?
No.
It's like somebody put a hose on my house.
Oh, so how is California?
Well, Northern California, I'm up in where uh, you've been up here
You're
near
in the wine
Napa,
country.
yeah. So all the wine vineyards are up here, but it has literally like poured. But like I told you, Nancy, the good news is that it the wind isn't blowing and it's like 60 to 70 degrees. So it's weird. You're not freezing in the
It's
rain.
not like a winter rain.
Yeah, it's really weird. But I've seen this when I was a little girl. I remember a rain that was this hard when I was very young. And looking out my back window of my house and seeing there was a cement slab and then a fence was on that to protect from the back house behind us. And right in between, there was a hole and it was like a waterfall. Hard rain coming through there. So I've seen this rain like this. I'm not afraid of it at all, but it's causing a lot of power outages
yeah, all the really
and the streets are getting flooded.
right.
But sometimes it'll stop for like this weekend. It's a little on and off, which is good. That gives time for the water to settle down.
Away.
Yeah.
Are you on flatland or on hills or
flatland?
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't worried about the Russian River. And now lately on the news, they're worried about the Russian River.
Well, they get,
as the guy on the news said, oh yeah, 30 is when we worry, and there's no problem. And now it's like at 29. So now they're worried. So
I'd worry at 28 if 30 was where you really get worried. I'm sorry. I've seen just go up. Really?
Oh, my son just wrote me and said it's hella rain. He lives in Marin County.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's very unusual. I don't recall, I've seen hard rain, but I don't recall something like this that consists day after day after day.
Yeah,
So,
that happened once when I was on grand jury. And I woke up one morning and my daughter said, "You're not going to grand jury today." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Look out the window." We lived in a 13-story high rise that was just off the freeway. We were sitting in the middle of a lake.
ooh.
And a car had been on the frontage road and they swerved and they drove into the fountain that was on the outside of the property, and you couldn't see that there was a fountain there.
Oh my God.
So, and when that happens here, it's really destructive because we have no place for the water to go. And actually, Dallas spends, well, the whole area, the whole North Texas spends more money getting rainwater back to the rivers than it does getting the water into our house.
Wow.
So,
and it's even snowing and raining in because Mel is in Chicago, and they've been kind of dry, but fortunately it's working out now. Everybody's getting rain.
Yeah, this is
one of the largest ice caps, the largest, just disengaged and it's floating. Damn.
Well,
there's so much to worry about with the political atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this, and then you got this guy who thinks he's coming in that is totally against anything with the environment.
Well, we're all about to get us a lesson on why we need to care about it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's cold in Texas. I mean, it's cold for us. I woke up, it was 44 this morning.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
It was 44 this morning here. And that's cold for us in the morning. And, I just keep thinking Sean lived through when all the power was out in Austin. He was in his house with his wife and the two kids trying to keep them going. And the only reason they had water, because the water also wasn't working, was there's a brewery about a mile and a half from his house. And he could walk there with a sled and take gallons of water, empty gallons, and bring the water back to the house. And he and his neighbors would all trudge down there. And they had their own generator at the brewery. So they could purify any water they got because that's why he couldn't
Isn't
drink
that
water.
one? That was a lifesaver.
Yeah, and he said everybody forever will love that brewery and how it functioned and how it ran.
Are they still there, the brewery?
Oh yeah, it's Brutorium. If you're in Austin, it's in North
Okay.
Austin, and they had great food. They made great ciders, um, but it was, it's like when you get in those extreme situations, that's when you find out what other people are made of.
Oh, I tell you, Texas went through some crap.
What do you mean went through?
Yeah, is going through.
We live in it. A lady wrote me and she said, I followed you for so long and blah, 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 but I'm moving out of Texas. And I said, you go, girl. You need someone to come help you pack the truck.
Yeah, because she can't handle it's
Well,
terrible. It's terrible, that governor and that other idiot.
true.
Somebody on that, I'm glad you don't take the social media serious. Someone said that the guy that works for Governor Abbott was going to be up for AG. And no, he wasn't even talking about him. He took that Bondi girl.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see who gets to wear. Remember, everybody was in it. You had our shorts in a knot because
Uh-huh.
Matt Gaetz was coming, and now he's not coming anymore.
Yeah, and I don't think that other guy that's in trouble. Do you know someone walking by you? I keep seeing an outline of a person.
There's my son just carried in my butcher box.
Oh, okay, because I kept seeing, I thought, do you have a ghost in your
Oh,
house?
I have a ghost in my I have fairies and I have a unicorn and I have a dragon, but he only visits at night.
Yeah, that's fun. I don't see anybody. I don't get no ghostesses in my house.
I don't see them, my daughter does, and I'm so glad I don't see them. When we lived in that high rise, the whole high rise was 13 stories. Well, it was 10 stories of apartments and they were beautiful and it had been set up as a corporate headquarter and so it sat there empty for 25 years and then someone came in and refurbed it and it was one of the prettiest apartments I ever lived in. But it was a place where you went when you were 64 or better, which meant it's a place where people went to sort of stop. And it was all rent controlled. So that part was really great. And my daughter got to move in with me because it's before my knees were repaired. And so she had to help me because I needed help getting around. And she could see them in the hallway. And a lot of people died, and a lot of people died in that building because, I mean, it's your chances of dying are when you're up there, really. And she used to tell them you're lost. And she tried to find a point of light and send them to him. She did that all the time. She didn't talk to me about it much. But this is one funny story about living in the building. My next door neighbor was blind. I mean, totally blind. And Al would call us when his maid would come in and clean a little too aggressively and she'd unplug things. And then he'd find out things weren't plugged in. So he'd have he'd call for Casey to come over and help plug his plugs in. Well, he called me one day and he said, is Casey there? And I said, no, Al, she's at work. And he said, well, when she gets home, have her give me a call. So I told Casey Al's unplugged again, I guess. And so go over and get his plugs plugged in. And she went over and she was gone for quite a bit. And I mean, Al was not a cutie, so it wasn't anything like that. So I go, I call up and I said, what's going on? She said, I've got about 5 more minutes. You're not going to believe this when I get home. And so she came home, and you hear that story in Gothic horror stories where don't invite them in, because if you invite someone in your house, it can't leave.
Yeah.
Al didn't know that the spirits were spirits because he can't see anyway. So they started talking to him, and then he started talking back. And so he said, well, come on over. Well, he invited four of them in, and they wouldn't leave. I mean, they were keeping him up at night. They were moving things around on him. They were,
Did he
and
think they were actual beings though, or did he know them?
Casey saw them, and she said she went over and she saw them, and what had happened. The reason he called Casey, because he couldn't figure out what he thought he was having a stroke. So they said, well, don't you talk to that Casey girl, because she's always trying to talk. And he said, oh, Casey knows these people. So she went over, and she got three of them to walk into the light. And the fourth one, she just came over and got my sage and said, you're done.
Ah,
Bye. And then Al got to live there peacefully until Al joined the hallway, I guess, the hallway. Casey called him the hallway brigade. But I could feel things touching against me, but I thought it was just me being weird, not being, no, I don't see them.
wow.
She does. And it's not a gift I want to have. Universe, if you're looking for other things to hand out, don't do it down there.
Right, right. That's kind of cool though.
Oh, it's,
Did she see Al? Did she see Al after he died?
no, Al was taken to a nursing home before he died.
Oh, okay.
But that was right before we moved out. And Casey said it was really a relief to go live in a regular apartment complex where if you see people, they're really there,
Yeah.
you know. And it was a great place. We moved to a great place. The next door person was a cello in the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, and I got to listen to her practice all the time. It was
Wow.
beautiful.
Was the view beautiful though?
Oh yeah. We had a nice lawn, and we had
Can
bunny.
you put yourself on pause?
Sure.
I hear talking. Can you?
Linda just figured out it was her neighbor across the street. The other thing that happens when it rains is because of the raindrops, they carry sound differently.
Okay, because usually if the neighbors, they got to be pretty loud for me to hear them. But I could hear chattering, talking. And then when we were talking about the ghosts, I was like,
oh no.
I thought they were in the back room. I'm thinking,
Yeah,
who's back there?
It really redirects sound. So,
but as soon as I stood up, I could see the light over there too. So they're probably talking about the flooding that's going on.
well, anyway, thank you so much for coming. Is there
Oh, you're so welcome.
any more ghost stories you want?
No, I love ghost stories. I told you about the time I was in my book too, that I had ghosts. I couldn't hardly stand going to my parents' house. Mom had been at my house. She died at my house. Dad was at the VA, so the house was pretty much empty. I could feel something so strong, I'd run in and run out. Like if I needed to get something for Dad, I'd run in and run out. I never told him I was afraid. And then one day we had a ghost crew, they set up the main station in the garage with a table,
Right.
computers. We had walkie-talkies. I remember this one guy was standing against my dad's workbench, and another guy was in the living room sitting in my dad's chair. And we turned everything on, and are you ready to go? And he says yes. And then right through the walkie-talkie, we heard a woman say, help me, 3 times. Everybody just like, what? And the guy stood up in the living room, and he come running out through the kitchen door that walks into the garage. And he was like, did you guys hear that? And as soon as he said that, there was a boom, 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 right against the wall facing into the garage. Not from outside, from inside. I said, we are getting out of here. We packed that stuff up and got the hell out of
Do you know the violet flame? Do you know the prayer of the violet flame?
No.
Well, I'll send it to you, and then you
Send
can
it to me.
Um, but you call in Archangel Zadkiel, Ascended Master Saint Germain, and four angels that work with him in the violet flame. And you basically call them in and say, uh, please go through and cleanse the energy and every piece of fabric, every piece of wood, every stone, everything in the house, and remove all low, discordant, disharmonious, and disruptive behavior, whether it's from the past, the present, or the future, or any dimension. And then you
That's
ask,
a good prayer.
yeah, and then you ask them to accompany it up to the center of to the center of our heavens, to the center of wherever your belief is. And I sort of explain it this way: it's like an energy laundromat. They have a big machine up there, and they take all that energy that's been swirling around, they clean it up, but then they bring it back to your house. So you're not energetically stripping your house. You're just asking them to take care of it. I used to work in a vintage store that was incredibly haunted. And when I got there, I said, okay, we're going to do this. And I did it every time I was there. And then it was up by the cash register. And every day when they opened the cash register, they set it. And then they just set it when it closed. And it took us about 2.5 years to get all the energy out. Because you think about a vintage store, it's always stuff
Oh,
people
it's got
love.
all that stuff.
And but if you do it, when people take my courses, and I'm teaching tarot again, so if you're interested, um, I give that as part of the package of taking the course, because I said if you're going to open yourself up to energy, you need to figure out how to shield yourself. And this is the best thing that I found pretty much anybody can use. And I had a lady who's taking my tarot class, and she never really thought about it. She did a lot of stuff. She worked with a lot of materials and things in her house. And so she said, it's kind of cool. I'm just going to say it. So she said it in her workroom in the place where she did that. And she said, all of a sudden it looked lighter and it looked more sparkly. So she decided maybe there's something to this. So she went around her whole house and read it in every room. And the next day, her best friend came over and she said, did you get some new drapes? Or have you changed the lighting? It's so much brighter in here.
Isn't that something? Hey, can I tell you though, when Dad died,
Mm-hmm.
and then, we put the house up for sale. But do you know, we had to go in and grab some, we didn't clean it out. We hired people. It was too much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when Dad died, that scary feeling left. It was no longer there.
Yeah. Well, if he had a tendency to try to overpower people or use his energy negatively, negative things will come in and attach to that. So
Right.
you just don't have the person whose own entity is uh, a little bit bent, but now you have a whole lot of other bent things with it. That's what
Yeah.
this woman said. She'd been doing spiritual things for almost 20 years, and no one had ever said to her, when you open it up, you got to close it down, or,
Yeah.
that's what's wrong with Ouija boards. People open themselves up to it. And yeah,
Yeah.
every time they got a Ouija board in the vintage store, I'd go over and fix it.
I'll tell you, I've heard some scary Ouija board stories.
I don't play with those things, but we
No,
can
when I
play.
was young, no, we were 13 or 14. We played around with it. Fortunately, we didn't get hit by
That's
anything.
when I got into tarot and I used cards, and I never was tempted to go there,
Ouija board. Yeah.
but I didn't know how to. Trust me, I'm sure I pulled in all kinds of stuff I didn't know at the time, but it's a learning curve for all of us. And hopefully when I talk about stones that spiritually protect you, like this one does, that it can help you understand the spirituality around you. My deal is to calm everybody down,
Yeah.
teach them how to protect themselves, and teach them how to use the instruments the way they want to. You can learn, you know, with the cards, you can read for yourself if you really want to. I can't do that. It doesn't work for me.
Right. Right.
But I can use a pendulum for myself if I
Yeah. I can use the pendulum too, but I have to really disengage. I can't let it tell me what I'm thinking. I have to act like I'm looking at a water meter
Mm-hmm.
and then ask the question. You have to really train yourself.
Well, you have to ask permission. You have to ask if it's safe to douse. Do you have permission to douse? And are you calling from your highest spirit? And then the third question is it safe here? And when I went back to the vintage store after I'd been out for COVID, I went back for one Halloween to give Gretchen a present and show up and read cards. And I asked if it was like, do I have permission to douse? Yes. Is it coming from my higher self? Yes. And then it said, is it safe to douse here? And it literally ripped the pendulum out of my hand and flew across the store. So I went, okay. And so I heard from my guides, walk around with the pendulum and you'll find the place where the unsafe
Yeah.
material. So I found it and I sealed it and said, you can have your store back, but not
Okay.
today. Not today.
Well, thank you so much.
Well,
I'm
thank
going
you
to
for
look up
coming.
my Orthoceras.
Yes, that's your
I'm going to
study.
Google it, see,
You're
and
good.
take a look, see.
Yeah, look it up as a fossil.
When you're holding it, it looks like a little zygote, you know,
It actually does.
a fertilized egg that's just beginning to build.
Well, it's got rings around it. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, so, but that's a fun one. You got a fossil.
Yeah.
Other people are
Yeah.
going to get lots and lots. Almost all the other crystals we ever look at are quartz. Like I happened to pull out a piece of citrine today for some unknown reason. That's a citrine. It's bright yellow. That's just yellow quartz
Yeah.
that has a different mineral. So you got your own unique
I got my own unique because I'm an
200
ancient
million
thing.
years old shell. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Linda, for coming.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. Bye, everybody.